Y'all think black folks just started flying planes yesterday? Think we needed white airlines to give us permission to touch the sky? Man, that's the biggest lie they ever sold you. I'm about to show you 10 rare photographs that prove black entrepreneurs were running their own airlines in the 40s and 50s, flying passengers across the country while major carriers were still refusing to serve us or hire us. These weren't just small operations. These were full-service airlines with professional pilots, flight attendants, and routes that connected black communities when white America tried to keep us grounded. Welcome back to Black History and Photos, where we bring you the real, unfiltered truth they've been hiding in dusty archives hoping you'd never find it. Please subscribe to us and leave a like. This tells the algorithm we're building a movement they can't silence. Today, we're counting down 10 photographs that document how black aviators built their own airline industry from scratch, proved that black excellence could soar, and then watched as integration destroyed the businesses they created. Let's start with the facts they conveniently forgot to mention in your history books. Between 1945 and 1960, over a dozen black-owned airlines operated in the United States, according to the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum archives. These airlines served routes that major carriers ignored, hired black pilots that white airlines refused to employ, and provided dignified service to black passengers who were tired of being humiliated on segregated flights. But here's what's going to blow your mind. When the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964 and major airlines were forced to integrate, they didn't just hire black pilots. They systematically destroyed black-owned airlines by undercutting prices, lobbying for restrictive regulations, and denying access to profitable routes. Every photograph I'm about to show you represents a business that was either legislated out of existence or economically strangled by white competitors who couldn't handle black success in the skies. Photo number 10 takes us to Los Angeles, California in 1946. This image from the Los Angeles Public Library archives shows a twin-engine Beechcraft aircraft with the words Negro Airmen International painted on the fuselage. Look at this beautiful plane in the photograph. Polished aluminum gleaming in the California sun, the registration numbers clearly visible. This wasn't some hobby aircraft. This was a commercial operation founded by black pilots who had served in World War II and came home to find that white airlines wouldn't hire them despite their military training and combat experience. Negro Airmen International was founded by James Herman Banning Jr., named after his father, who was the first black pilot to complete a transcontinental flight in 1932. The airline provided charter services, flight training, and air taxi operations throughout Southern California. They employed black pilots, mechanics, and ground crew, creating jobs in an industry that was completely segregated. But here's what's going to make you furious. The Civil Aeronautics Board, which regulated all commercial aviation, made it nearly impossible for small airlines to compete with major carriers. They required expensive insurance, imposed strict maintenance standards that favored large operators, and controlled route assignments to protect established airlines. Negro Airmen International struggled for years against these regulatory barriers before finally closing in 1953. This photograph captures black excellence in aviation that was deliberately regulated out of existence. Number 9 shows us a photograph from Ebony Magazine archives dated 1949. This image captures the interior of a Douglas DC-3 aircraft operated by a black-owned charter service. Look at this photograph. Rows of passenger seats upholstered in leather, overhead compartments for luggage, windows with curtains, a black flight attendant in a crisp uniform standing in the aisle ready to serve passengers. This wasn't second-class service. This was luxury travel that rivaled anything white airlines offered. In 1949, several black-owned airlines operated DC-3 aircraft, which were the workhorses of commercial aviation. These planes could carry 28 passengers and had a range of over 1,500 miles. Black airlines used them to serve routes connecting major cities with large black populations: Chicago to New York, Los Angeles to San Francisco, Atlanta to Washington, D.C. They provided service that was often better than what black passengers received on white airlines, where they were segregated to the back and treated with contempt. But here's what makes this photograph so powerful. Black airlines weren't just transportation services. They were statements of dignity and self-determination. When you flew on a black-owned airline, you were served by black professionals who treated you with respect. You didn't have to worry about being humiliated or discriminated against. You were a valued customer, not a tolerated inconvenience. This photograph represents the pride and professionalism that Black aviation brought to an industry that tried to exclude us. Photo number 8 takes us to Chicago, Illinois in 1950. This image from the Chicago Defender archives shows the crew of a Black-owned airline standing in front of their aircraft. Look at this photograph. 5 Black men in pilot uniforms, leather jackets, and aviator sunglasses, their arms crossed with confidence. Behind them, a twin-engine aircraft ready for flight. These men were combat veterans who had flown missions over Europe and the Pacific, and they came home to build their own airline because white carriers wouldn't hire them. The airline was called Midwest Air Charter, and it operated out of Chicago's Midway Airport from 1948 to 1954. The pilots had a combined total of over 10,000 flight hours and impeccable safety records. They flew business executives, entertainers, and anyone who could afford charter service. They proved that Black pilots were just as skilled, just as professional, and just as capable as any white pilot in the industry. But here's what's going to make you see red. While these Black pilots were building successful businesses, major airlines were still refusing to hire Black pilots for commercial flights. It wasn't until 1957 that a major carrier hired its first Black pilot, and even then, it was only because of pressure from civil rights organizations. This photograph captures men who were qualified, experienced, and excellent, but were denied opportunities because of their race. So they created their own opportunities and proved that Black excellence couldn't be grounded. Number 7 shows us a photograph from the National Archives dated 1952. This image captures a Black-owned airline's maintenance hangar. Look at this photograph. Black mechanics working on aircraft engines, tools organized on workbenches, parts and equipment stored systematically. These weren't just pilots. These were complete aviation professionals who understood every aspect of aircraft operation and maintenance. The hangar belonged to an airline called Flamingo Airways, which operated out of Miami, Florida from 1950 to 1956. The airline specialized in flights to the Caribbean, serving Black passengers who wanted to vacation in Jamaica, Haiti, and the Bahamas without facing discrimination. Flamingo Airways employed over 30 people, including pilots, mechanics, flight attendants, and ground crew. They maintained their own aircraft to the highest safety standards and had a perfect safety record throughout their operation. But here's what makes this photograph so significant. Black mechanics were certified to work on complex aircraft systems, engines, and avionics. They had the same training and qualifications as white mechanics, but they had to create their own opportunities because major airlines wouldn't hire them. This photograph proves that Black technical expertise in aviation was comprehensive and professional. We weren't just flying planes. We were building, maintaining, and operating complete airline systems. Photo number 6 takes us to Newark, New Jersey in 1953. This image from the Newark Public Library archives shows passengers boarding a Black-owned airline flight. Look at this photograph. Well-dressed Black passengers climbing the stairs to the aircraft, families with children, business people with briefcases. Everyone is smiling, excited to fly. A Black pilot stands at the top of the stairs greeting passengers as they board. This was a flight operated by an airline called Air Taxi Service, which provided scheduled passenger service between Newark, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. from 1951 to 1957. The airline charged competitive prices and provided service that was often more convenient than major carriers because they used smaller airports closer to city centers. Black passengers preferred flying with air taxi service because they were treated with dignity and respect from the moment they purchased their tickets until they reached their destination. But here's what's powerful about this photograph. It shows Black families traveling by air at a time when flying was still considered a luxury. These weren't wealthy people. These were working class and middle class Black folks who saved money to fly because it was faster and more comfortable than taking segregated trains or buses. Black-owned airlines made air travel accessible to Black communities in ways that white airlines never did. This photograph captures a moment when Black folks controlled their own mobility and their own dignity in the skies. Number 5 shows us a photograph from Jet magazine archives dated 1954. This image captures a Black female flight attendant serving passengers on a charter flight. Look at this sister in the photograph. Crisp uniform with a pillbox hat, white gloves, a professional smile as she serves drinks to passengers. She represents the dozens of Black women who worked as flight attendants for Black-owned airlines when major carriers refused to hire Black women for these positions. Black-owned airlines employed black women as flight attendants starting in the late 40s, over a decade before major airlines began hiring black women. These women were trained to the same standards as white flight attendants, but they brought an extra level of care and cultural competence to serving black passengers. They understood the specific needs and concerns of black travelers who had experienced discrimination on white airlines. But here's what makes this photograph so important. Black women in aviation faced double discrimination based on race and gender. White airlines wouldn't hire them. White society claimed they weren't refined or attractive enough to represent airlines. But black-owned airlines knew better. They hired black women who were professional, intelligent, and excellent at their jobs. This photograph proves that black women have always been capable of excellence in every field, and the only thing holding us back was discrimination, not ability. Photo number 4 takes us to Detroit, Michigan in 1955. This image from the Detroit Public Library archives shows a black-owned airlines ticket counter at Detroit City Airport. Look at this photograph. A professional office setup with a counter, typewriters, filing cabinets, and route maps on the wall. A black ticket agent in a suit helping a customer. This was a full-service operation with reservations, ticketing, and customer service. The airline was called Great Lakes Air Service, and it operated flights connecting Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh from 1953 to 1958. The airline served the industrial corridor where black workers had migrated for manufacturing jobs. They provided convenient flights for business travel and family visits. The ticket counter was located in a black business district, making it easily accessible to the community they served. But here's what's going to make you furious. Great Lakes Air Service was forced out of business when major airlines began competing on the same routes with lower prices. The major carriers could afford to lose money temporarily to drive out competition because they had government subsidies and access to capital that black-owned airlines didn't have. This was economic warfare designed to eliminate black business ownership in aviation. This photograph captures a professional operation that was destroyed not by failure or incompetence, but by systematic economic sabotage. Number 3 shows us a photograph from the Schomburg Center dated 1956. This image captures a black pilot conducting a pre-flight inspection of his aircraft. Look at this brother in the photograph. Pilot uniform, clipboard in hand, walking around the aircraft checking every detail. Tires, propellers, control surfaces, fuel tanks. This is the professionalism and attention to safety that characterized black aviation. The pilot was Captain James O. Plinton Jr., who flew for several black-owned airlines before becoming the first black pilot hired by a major carrier when he joined Trans World Airlines in 1957. But before that historic hire, Plinton spent years flying for black-owned charter services, building his hours and proving his skills. He had over 5,000 flight hours and multiple certifications, but white airlines wouldn't even interview him until civil rights pressure forced them to integrate. But here's what makes this photograph so significant. It shows that black pilots maintained the same rigorous safety standards as any pilot in the industry. They understood that they were representing their race every time they flew, and they couldn't afford any mistakes because white society was looking for any excuse to claim black pilots were incompetent. This photograph captures the extra burden that black aviation professionals carried, the pressure to be perfect because anything less would be used to justify continued discrimination. Photo number 2 takes us to New York City in 1957. This image from the New York Public Library archives shows a black-owned airlines advertisement in a black newspaper. Look at this advertisement. Professional graphics showing an aircraft in flight. Text promoting reliable service, experienced pilots, and competitive prices. Contact information for reservations. This wasn't a small-time operation. This was a business that invested in marketing and brand building. The airline was called Sepia Airways, and it operated charter flights throughout the Northeast from 1955 to 1960. The name Sepia was a deliberate choice, referencing the term used in black media to describe African Americans. The airline marketed specifically to black customers who wanted to avoid the discrimination they faced on white airlines. Sepia Airways advertised in black newspapers, sponsored community events, and built a loyal customer base. But here's what's powerful about this photograph. It shows that black-owned airlines understood marketing and business development. They weren't just flying planes, they were building brands, creating customer loyalty, and competing in a sophisticated industry. This advertisement represents the entrepreneurial spirit that drove Black aviation, but it also represents what was lost when integration destroyed Black-owned businesses. When major airlines integrated, Black customers abandoned Black-owned airlines to fly with the bigger carriers, and the businesses that had served them faithfully went bankrupt. And our #1 photograph shows us an image from the Library of Congress dated 1947. This captures the Wheeler Flying Service Douglas DC-3 on the tarmac at Chicago's Midway Airport. Look at this magnificent aircraft in the photograph. The name Wheeler Flying Service painted proudly on the fuselage. Ground crew loading luggage, passengers boarding. This was one of the first Black-owned airlines to operate scheduled passenger service, and it represented the peak of Black achievement in commercial aviation. Wheeler Flying Service was founded by Warren Wheeler in 1946. Wheeler was a Tuskegee Airman who came home from World War II determined to build a business in the industry he loved. He secured financing, purchased aircraft, hired crews, and began operating flights between Chicago, New York, and Miami. The airline served Black passengers who were tired of segregated seating and discriminatory treatment on white carriers. But here's what makes this photograph the most important on this list. Wheeler Flying Service proved that Black entrepreneurs could operate in one of the most complex and capital-intensive industries in America. Aviation requires massive investment, technical expertise, regulatory compliance, and operational excellence. Wheeler and other Black airline owners demonstrated all of these capabilities. They proved that the only thing holding Black folks back from success in any industry was discrimination and lack of access to capital, not ability or intelligence. This photograph also represents the tragedy of what was lost. Wheeler Flying Service operated for only 3 years before financial pressures forced it to close. The airline couldn't compete with major carriers that had government subsidies, established routes, and access to cheap capital. When Wheeler shut down in 1949, it marked the beginning of the end for Black-owned commercial aviation. Within 15 years, every Black-owned airline would be out of business, and Black pilots would be fighting for jobs at white carriers that had spent decades excluding them. So there you have it. 10 photographs that prove Black airlines ruled the skies before Delta, United, and American ever hired their first Black pilot. These images show that Black folks built complete airline operations with professional crews, maintained aircraft, and satisfied customers. We proved that Black excellence could soar when given the opportunity. But white America couldn't handle Black success in aviation, so they used economic pressure, discriminatory regulations, and market manipulation to destroy every Black-owned airline. These photographs survived because someone understood their importance. Someone knew that future generations would need proof that Black folks didn't just break into the aviation industry. We built our own industry from scratch, and it was taken from us through systematic economic warfare. The next time someone acts like Black pilots are a recent development, show them these photographs. The next time someone claims that diversity in aviation is new, remind them that Black folks were running entire airlines 70 years ago. The next time someone suggests that Black businesses can't compete in complex industries, point to these images and ask what happened to the Black-owned airlines that were thriving before integration. Now let's do a moral audit, because this is about more than just aviation history. This is about economic justice and reparations. Scripture tells us in Proverbs 13, verse 22, "A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children." But the Black airline owners in these photographs couldn't leave inheritances because their businesses were destroyed by systematic economic sabotage. The wealth they built, the jobs they created, the legacy they were building, all of it was taken through policies and practices designed to protect white economic dominance. The destruction of Black-owned airlines represents a pattern that repeated across every industry. Black Wall Street burned. Black banks failed without government support. Black insurance companies were driven out of business. Black manufacturers lost contracts. Every time Black folks built economic power, white supremacy found a way to destroy it. These photographs document one chapter in that ongoing theft. But here's what I need my Black family to understand. These photographs aren't just about mourning what was lost. They're proof of what we're capable of building. Our ancestors created airlines with almost nothing, facing discrimination at every turn. If they could do that, imagine what we could do today with the resources and opportunities they never had. So the next time you fly on Delta, United, or American, remember that Black folks used to own airlines. Remember that we built this industry and were pushed out of it. Remember that the lack of black ownership in aviation today isn't because we failed. It's because we were systematically excluded and economically destroyed. Y'all stay woke, stay proud, and stay committed to building black economic power. This is vintage Black America, and we're not done exposing what we built and what they took from us. Subscribe, share these truths, and let's keep our real history alive. These photographs prove that black excellence has always been able to soar. Now we need to reclaim the sky. Peace. Now let me tell you what really gets me heated about this whole situation. White folks love to celebrate the first black pilot hired by a major airline like it was some generous act of progress. But they never want to talk about the black-owned airlines that were already employing black pilots for years before that. They act like integration was this beautiful moment of racial harmony. But they don't mention that it destroyed every black-owned airline in America. You know why? Because the real story exposes that integration wasn't about equality. It was about eliminating black economic competition. Major airlines didn't hire black pilots because they suddenly realized discrimination was wrong. They hired black pilots because civil rights pressure forced them to, and they did it right after they finished destroying all the black-owned airlines that had been their competition. That's not progress. That's economic conquest. These photographs prove that black folks didn't need white airlines to give us opportunities. We created our own opportunities and built successful businesses. But white supremacy couldn't allow that, because black economic independence is the biggest threat to white power. So they used every tool available: regulations, capital access, route assignments, price wars, to eliminate black ownership in aviation. And then they wrote history books that pretend black pilots started with integration, completely erasing the airlines we built and operated for decades. Man, that's some next-level historical theft. But we got the receipts. These photographs prove we were flying high before they ever let us in their cockpits. And we're going to keep telling this story until every black child knows that their ancestors didn't just break barriers, they built their own sky. This is vintage Black America, and we're reclaiming our legacy one photograph at a time.